Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And I have some viewer questions that I want to answer, so sort of FAQ, but a little bit more disorganized, to say the least. So let's kind of get right into our video, but first and foremost, huge shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. If you guys are interested, join channel memberships. Shameless plug right here, there's a link down below, right? You click that little thing, and it'll take you to where you can go to check those out. Otherwise, please hit that subscribe button. That helps this channel grow so much. And hit that little thumbs up button. Like this video. Leave comments. I love to hear your guys' thoughts. I don't always get to respond. You know, I used to be a lot better at it, but unfortunately, just with everything I've had going on, my life has been, crazy for a long time now. So it's definitely had to slow down a little bit. But thank you guys again for your support. Let's get into our video, talk about a few things. So one of the questions I got, this is really funny. Somebody asked me what my difference was in when I complete the Riva mission versus like the Wat Tambor mission and the Kadimundi mission. And I thought this was like a really great question because it is very like each one of them had a different feeling. The Wat Tambor mission was always this thing where there really wasn't that much RNG involved. Like I had Gear 12 Geonosians, I hadn't really invested that much into it, so it wasn't. And I had Wat Tambor before it was a Kenobi requirement, so I don't know, I never kind of felt the pressure to get Wat in the sense that like I never remodded for I think I might have remodded once for that mission. I never took that mission very seriously. Now if I would go down to like the Kadimundi mission, that was one where like every single time I completed that mission, it was this huge accomplishment because you overcame RNG, or you're down to like 2 clones with no health. Like it was always crazy. That is a mission that will like live in infamy as just like it turned boys into men, girls into women kind of thing. Like it just it was horrible. Just one of the like this was easily, it was like one of the worst things too, because certain opening plays you're like, there's no way I'm winning. Like it was yeah, this one it was always like this huge, like, you're like, yes, like there wasn't even like a relief. It was just like you're too busy celebrating. Whereas with the Riva mission, I think I have a very good success rate in it. There's a lot of really good guides, not nearly as much RNG, and so it's more of like just a relief that, like you're like holding your breath that I don't want to be that person that fails it kind of thing. Especially like I did, so I'm filming this on a day where my guild had done it, and I walked probably like 5 people through it before I did it myself. And one of the guys stayed back to watch me, and I remember thinking to myself, like, Phil, you cannot mess up now. Like, you've just walked everybody through this successfully. You've got to have this thing, down pat. So, yeah, with the Riva mission, it's not really this sense of like huge accomplishment after a while. It's just like a relief that I got it done. Again, I'm remodding and everything for that mission, but I thought that was that was a really good question. That I thought, I'd answer here for you guys. So the next one was, what are, like, if I could, put more relics on it, or if I could, it wasn't really like more relics, but like what were like 10 characters that I'd really like to have some relic increases on. And so my 2 GLs, I'd love to get these characters to relic 9, and I thought about making this a full video, but I wanted to throw it in here because I don't think that, like, it's like pretty obvious, right? Like I want relic 9 on these characters. I think they'd be fantastic at relic 9. I don't need to say anymore. Relic 8's here, so I've got Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, Jabba, and Chrysanthemum. The Jabba, Chrysanthemum, I think those are pretty self-explanatory, but for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, I found myself that I'm struggling against some of the higher power Jabbas, and I think by having an R8 Kylo, it will elevate his offense to the point that I could maybe stay alive a little bit longer. It's going to add some really good stats. Again, he's going to gain some additional things here. Not only the damage, I mean, critical chance is great, but, more armor, health, mastery, there's some good stuff that he's gaining there that I think would really give me a good, at least get me on level playing terms again, especially with how much offense my Kylo already has on the speed set. Being above 12,000 at Relic 7 with, some pretty, you think we're getting 6% here, 8%, 8%, 18 there. Not the craziest amount of speed, but for what it is, you know, I'm pretty proud of my Spring Litter Kylo Ren there. So yeah, those are my Relic 8 wants. And then my Relic 7s here, I'd want to get the Jabba team. The Jabba team just needs so many relics, and I think at Relics they just get that much better. So this isn't even about scoring more in the raid, because me scoring more in the raid at this point isn't going to help my guild. It's not going to push me into higher rewards. So it's really not, you know, I need to do a lot more stuff than just get them to Relic 7. But it's more so for that PvP aspect. I want to be able to use these guys and get a lot more out of them. Obviously, Star Killer is really just about wanting to have a little bit more damage on that team. Now that we're encountering higher and higher relic levels with more frequency, it'd be nice to have a Star Killer who's a little bit stronger. And then finally, Chewbacca to Relic 7, just because the rest of the Commander Luke Skywalker team is at least there. So, kind of rounding out the bunch a little bit with him. So, I mean, that's a really easy win. It's just, I'm not going to do that until I have my Leia stuff sorted out. So, you know, we've got a little bit of time before that'll happen. But yeah, those are 10 characters that I'd love to put some additional, you know, relics on. And I think that would make this account significantly better in a lot of different ways. So that is something that I thought I'd share with you guys. Like, those are, if I could increase relic levels on characters right now, those would be the ones that I would do probably. So I saw a question, you know, and I've kind of done videos like this, but I thought I'd kind of throw it in here a little bit about when to farm your second and third Galactic Legend and finding that balance between ships, characters, core teams. And it's such a complicated topic that there's some cop-out answers. And some of them is, oh, it depends on your roster. And, oh, it depends on this. But I mentioned this in my, you know, a little bit in a video, that you want to use your peers. The combination of, and I think it was even in today's video, or at least the one that I'd released today about like what to farm next, and I'd said that for your S tier fleets, it's a combination of fleet and GAC, and I think that's a very good barometer to use for fleets is, you know, what does your fleet arena look like? What does your GAC opponents look like? With GLs, that's a lot harder because one, your GAC opponents, you could get something crazy. And it's just, that's not realistic. And then, you know, your squad arena, like, who knows if you've kept up with it the entire time, maybe it's a good barometer. But what I would look at is, you can go on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.gg. You can see how many total Galactic Legends your guild has. You obviously want to be in the middle of that number. You want to be at that average. If your guild has 50 Galactic Legends, you better hope you have one of them. If your guild has, you know, 150 Galactic Legends, you better hope you have 3 kind of thing. That, you know, you want to have that average. So that's kind of the barometer that I would use, is kind of use your guild. Now, if you're on the lower end of your guild, maybe you could be underneath that. If you're at the upper end of your guild, probably bump those numbers up because those are rookie numbers in that racket. But there's a lot of factors you need to take into account. There's not like one thing that you can look at and say, this is when you farm your second Galactic Legend, because even in my farming guide, I kind of show everybody that there's a lot that goes into it. Like, you go and get Jabba, right? You know, you finally get your Jabba, and then I'm like, hey, you know, you can probably start thinking about your Malevolence Negotiator, finish off your Thrawn. You've got, you know, Darth Revan, Malak, Star Killer. You know, you're doing all these things before you can even get to that second GL, because it's a little bit unrealistic to go GL to GL, especially early on in the game, because it is such a huge outpouring of resources. And some of those resources go into characters who are just straight garbanzo beans. I'm looking at you, Princess Leia. But yeah, it's one of those things that, hey, you've got to do what you got to do. But overall, I would say that your second and third Galactic Legends kind of come at that time when it's going to, I'd say those are still two, like, your second and third Galactic Legends are kind of got to be ones that you're more so starting from scratch than not. Whereas some of the other ones you can start building off of a foundation based on other characters that you've built up along the way. So yeah, that's the, you know, kind of GL spiel there. The next topic I wanted to cover a little bit has to do with the pace the game is moving at. And I know I talk about this a lot, but I think with everything that we've had going on recently, it's important to address this as much as I can. So the pace of the game is quickening. Now, at that same time, what I think Capital Games is trying to do is balance out their progression with, keeping you entertained. If you get to the point where you've caught up to everything that there is, you're losing entertainment, right? Because there's less engagement to do. So Capital Games needs to find that balance because they made gearing a lot easier. They made, they gave us the raid changes, which allowed us to get the gear that we actually need. Like, I've noticed huge changes in my ability to level, to gear characters because of this new raid, because I'm able to pick what I need much more so than having to hope and pray that I get something. So I have noticed that, and it's definitely made that is a huge impact in this game. But they're coming out and they're like, hey, we're going to move these raids, and I wonder if the reason for doing that is they're trying to match that progression, because if you are getting those rewards for that long a period of time in this game, you are going to be so much further ahead than everybody else who's come before you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing until you start getting to that point where all you have left to do are like a couple of these one-off farms, and you're like, man, this is boring. So I do think that the game is moving quickly, but I think that what they're really trying to do is balance out how much they're allowing you to progress with keeping you engaged along the way with it. Because it's not realistic for them to release new territory battle, zones every single time. They're going to space those out. And the only reason why they're going to be releasing these is to keep the players engaged for a longer period. So I do want to, bring that up with the pace of the game. It is definitely quick, but there are things that you can do to kind of counteract that, and that's going to be kind of the conclusion here. So if you feel the game is going really, really quickly, and you're like, I don't know that I can keep up, what I would recommend is find a game mode that you don't need to worry about as much. Maybe it's Territory Wars. Maybe you go in and tell your guild, hey, I'm only setting defense, or you're just not going to join at all. Squad Arena. Maybe just go in there, forfeit every single day. Maybe it's, climbing to a place in Fleet Arena where you're not going to get hit and just sit there for as long as you can and do, minimal battles. Maybe it's you got to take a step back from Conquest. Like, if there's too much going on in the game, try and take a step back from an area that won't significantly impact what your account can do. Because sometimes you do just need that break, that you need to take that step back a little bit and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to take GAC as seriously. Maybe I'm going to do this or that. I think you're a lot better off in this game if you try to be a little bit more on the... What's the wording I want to use here? If you are constantly trying to change what you're doing and, mix it up a little bit, I think you'll feel that the pace of the game isn't nearly as bad than if you're constantly just trying to keep up, right? That you're going to farm the newest thing, you're never going to catch up. But if you kind of take that step back and be like, hey, you know what? I don't need to have the greatest teams for this newest raid because I want to build up some of these other things that are going to help my account. So I think that's the way you kind of deal with the pacing is, one, kind of take a step back and say, maybe I'm going to take a game mode less seriously. And then two, just recognize that you're never going to really catch up. So instead of chasing the newest thing, let it kind of come to you in a time that it makes sense for your account. And that's where I think, like, as I end here, right, in my rambling rant that's going on now at this point, that's where I am now, where I've gotten to that point where all the characters that I need to farm are single drops. They're no longer accelerated. And I've done that because over time, I've let things come to me rather than just chase that newest thing immediately. I kind of let it come into me. I can, figure out where to go from there. So, guys, that's kind of just some, answering community questions, fat fill advice, whatever you want to call it. But that hopefully you're paying attention still at the end here, through the ranting and me kind of half asleep in and out. But you really, with the pace of the game, you've really just got to kind of take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can I cut back on if I need to? For some people, it's, you're playing 5 different accounts, maybe you go back to 3, just, figure it out. But that's the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. I love all you. May the force be with you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.